Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hello and happy Monday. It is good to see y'all this morning, and I am glad to be here. You can see that I don't know why the little her little name thing is gone, but you can see I have Lucy Cam set up under me. She is her little section down here. I've got her under my desk where her bed is, where she always lays. I went last week and on Friday and got her a little rug and got her some little flowery curtains to go with everything. And she's even got some LED lights down there. So Lucy has the best seat in the house. She is, oh, she's so funny. But she's got her little toy. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can kind of see it. She's got her little toy that she's snuggled up with right now. We went for a short walk this morning. I'm not feeling great today, so we didn't get to go for a real long walk. So she's asleep for now, but we'll see how long that lasts. She'll be, since we didn't get to go on a real long walk this morning, she didn't wear out as much energy as she usually does. So I just fed her a bigger breakfast to try to tide her over. So, but we have Lucy Cam up. So she's a trip, y'all. She's the funniest thing in the world. So there it is. There's Lucy Cam. Now I have it where it says it. So I am excited about our new trial. I spent a lot of time yesterday deep diving, getting into everything, getting all the information pulling as many pictures as I can. I like for us for 13th jurors to go in, even though we call it 13th jurors, like we're going from a jury perspective. We're really not, because juries aren't supposed to research the way that we do, but that's okay. We are informed jurors. So I want, yes, Sonia, Pigtail Man. It is Pigtail Man. Yes. He is something else, y'all. Thank you so much. What we're going to do today, because I'm not feeling well, is we are going to go over, I've spent a lot of time getting everything together so we can look at everything, but we're going to go over the intro to the new case, and then we're going to end early today so I can lay down. The jury selection starts tomorrow. So, the trial, the opening statements are scheduled, they're supposed to be right now scheduled for Wednesday. So, I've been having so many people asking if I could put the information on recaps for the podcast. I haven't been doing that lately. I think the last one that we did was, I think maybe Letitia was the last one that we did. So it's been a minute. So I am going to be doing the recaps on the podcast. So it'll be iTunes or Apple, podcast, basically anywhere you get podcasts, it'll be on there. So if you miss a day, because this one is going to 80s Music Man always tries to sneak in. You can't sneak in. I call you out every time. Welcome, 80s Music Man. I feel like that teacher who, like, when you try to sneak in when you're late, like, calls you out, makes you come to the class and, tell everybody why you're late. So Future says, my husband said to me the other day, I can always tell when you're watching one of your trials because you're zoned into your iPad like you're actually on the jury. Yes. Tell him you are. It's jury duty. You're a 13th juror. Duh. That's too funny. So, so we are going to, this one is a wild one, y'all. And the reason I wanted to do this one is because there's so much involved that you need charts and graphs to figure it out. And it just so happens I'm the chart lady. So, this one is kind of right up my alley because there's so much involved that it makes it, you know, perfect for me to be able to introduce to y'all because I can give you so much of the background for it, which is what we love to do here, right? So, now this is the third murder trial for Thomas Randolph. Now, that is not his the third. It's not the third murder trial because it's the third person. Well, actually, I guess technically it is the third person, but it's also the second. But we're going to go over this now. Um, just a quick Cliff's Notes version, so you have an idea of where we're going with this. Um, Thomas Randolph, his trial starts Wednesday, and this is actually a retrial. He has already been convicted for the murder of his sixth wife, Sharon, and for the intruder slash hitman for hire that killed Sharon. So, this is the second trial for this because he had um, in the first trial, they during the investigation, a lot of stuff came out about his past, and he has six wives. And out of the six wives, three of them have died from, uh, you know, sketchy circumstances. So as they're looking into everything, they found out that he also had gone through a murder trial in the 80s for the murder of his second wife. So during the trial, they bring up the information from that, in which the judge did rule. This is, of course, goes to prior bad acts, but the judge did rule that, it would be, uh, part of the, it would be admissible because it shows his pattern. However, um, the Supreme Court overturned his conviction and granted him a new trial, which is crazy because when we get through this, I'm going to show y'all where there are two really, really creepy things that happened, and um, like foreshadowing or like, telling the future. And one of them is that he said after his conviction, he's like, well, that's all right. 3 years down the road, I'll get a fair trial. And sure enough, 3 years down the road, Supreme Court overturned it. And now he's getting another trial. Now, this is not a this is not one of those things where I'm going to start from the beginning because it doesn't really make sense that way. So what we're going to do is start with the trial that he is in, the situation that he is on trial for this time, because all of the other stuff comes in from that investigation. So we're going to go over what this specific trial is for, and then we're going to, once we get through that, we're going to kind of walk through the investigation of the detectives and how they came to get all of the information from the rest of the stuff. And it is a doozy. So let's jump on in and get started because, man, y'all, this one, he is something else. All right. So these are some of his previous mug shots. He has multiple, but these are some of the ones that he has now. Welcome 13th. Oops. Oh, I forgot to turn. Let me turn that off. Okay. It's my other thing that okay. So, all right. So this is him. And I had to put this picture real big right here because he is wearing a shirt that says, I do very bad things, but I do them well, which I thought was ironic, I guess, if nothing else. But this is him in all his long haired glory. And then these are his six wives. Everything, oops, I'm going to do that all day. And let me. Um, let's see. I gotta fix one of my settings real quick because it's. Okay. Okay. All right. So everything from this begins in Las Vegas. Now he's living in Las Vegas, and this is May. It says 8th. I think it's actually the 6th. Remind me. I need to go back and check that because I don't. I think that's supposed to be the 6th, and I may have done a typo because I was working on this till 3 a.m. Um. So May of 2008. So Tom and his sixth wife, Sharon, had just gone out. They went to this local casino, Santa Fe Station near their house. Went and had supper and went gambling and kind of just a date night. So went out and just had had a little date night. You can see them when they're leaving, walking through the parking lot, and they're holding hands, and I mean everything just kind of seems um, oh, everything just seems like, regular night, everything's fine, right? So they go home. um, they pull up to the house about 8:30 p.m. Now Tom said that he opened the garage door, and this is their garage. He said he opened the garage door. Sharon got out and went inside, and he finished pulling the car into the garage, and then he went inside himself. At 8:45 p.m., a call comes into 911. Tom tells the dispatchers that his wife had been shot in the head. Um, Now, on the 911 call, he's like breathing heavy and he's grunting and he sounds like he's kind of crying at one point. Um, he's, calling out her name. And according to Tom on the 911 call, he says that he saw Sharon's body lying on the floor and he thought that she had just fallen. Let me see. Let me pull up. Let's listen to some of the 911 call so y'all can hear. Thomas Randolph 911 call. Let's see. Oh, there's so much crazy stuff that happens in this. Let's see. Oh, that one's not. I'm trying to find the one that has a little bit more to it. I think it's. Oh, it's not on this one. I guess I could have pulled this up before I. Let's see. There's another thing too. I'm gonna have to play for y'all when it comes to it, but he does this walkthrough, and we'll get to it in just a minute. But he does this walkthrough where he's trying to take investigators through what happened, and it is bizarre. Okay, wait, I think this is it. Let's see. Um, ugh, it's not on there. Whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time trying to go over it. I'll find it and we'll play it at some point, but I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. Um, all right, so the the call goes into 911. Now, what's strange about this too, you can hear him. It's almost like he is. Um, you never know how you're going to act when something crazy happens, or you can say all day long, well, I would be like this or I would be like that, and you really don't know. So I try not to put too much judgment into the way that people behave on a 911 call, but he is a little bit kind of over dramatic with his sound effects. Like he's like grunting, and he's it's not like he's just upset and crying. He's, they tell him, you need to turn her over on her back. And so he's like, like he's trying to lift her up and stuff. It was kind of crazy. So, just not quite normal. Um, so he tells 911 that he saw, when he walks in and he sees Sharon lying there, that he that he saw her laying there. He originally thought that she was basically just, had fallen or something was wrong. He says he didn't see, I guess he didn't see blood and everything at first. So he said that he sees her and kind of calls her. He said that he then sees a masked intruder who comes toward him. He said that they struggled for the gun, which caused the intruder's mask to come up slightly, so that Tom could see who it was. He said that the intruder's name is Mike Miller, and he says that he knows Mike because Mike has ripped him off before. Now, he said that when he got the gun, they struggled for the gun and he got it. He said that once he got the gun, he began shooting Mike, and Mike kind of kept going toward the garage. Now, this is the hallway where you come in from the garage. And, it looks like, I think the bathroom's right here. Bedroom's right here. The garage is right here. So um, it'll show another hallway picture in just a moment. But he, this is Mike Miller, who is now he's got Sharon, who's dead in the hallway by the bedroom, and he's got Mike, who's dead in the garage. When he is talking to the 911 dispatcher too, he said something about, the dispatcher asked Tom, is he hurt too? And he said, well, yeah, I hope he's dead. So the police arrive. Oh, and also notice there's a few things, and we'll get into it. I have some close-ups later in this, but there's a few things to notice about this. See, there's a bag right here that has, and I have the close-up coming later, but there's a bag right here that has some jewelry and stuff in it. You can see the jewelry kind of hanging out. And then also we'll there's a, um, this is the bag of jewelry. Also, um, the ski mask is on the ground in the garage, kind of towards where his body is, but not right there with it. Um, but it looks like he had, dropped it out of his hand. Now, police arrive and begin to kind of take in the scene. So you can see up here, there are drawers open. There's the jewelry in the bag, and then that's laying by Mike's body. And then the takeout that she had in her hand from where they had just gotten there from the restaurant, the takeout is on the floor by her purse. So it looks like she dropped it right there. Um, the two victims are Sharon Randolph and Mike Miller. This is Mike Miller. So, this is some more pictures of the scene that police saw. So you can see the drawers are open here. This is the hallway where you can see the blood still right here. This is the hallway where Sharon's body was. And you can see there's stuff kind of thrown on here. The jewelry box right here was left open. So they said that everything looked pretty wrong, basically. So, at this point, they're talking to Tom, and you know, eh, they're saying, "Okay, he's he's a hero. This guy came after them, shot his wife, tried to kill him too, and he saved him, saved himself, whatever." Uh, so they bring him to the station. Now it's just after midnight, and he walks into the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to answer questions about all the events of the evening. He tells detectives that he's known Mike Miller for about 4 or 5 months because Mike had been doing handiwork for him. So he said that Mike did know that they were going to be going to dinner at the casino that night. And he said that Mike also knew that Tom kept cash on him. So Tom tells detectives kind of his versions of what happened again. And at first, it does seem like it was just a robbery gone wrong, but things start to kind of not add up. So Sharon has one daughter, and her name is Colleen. This is Colleen. Colleen was at home when all of this happened, and she got a call from one of her mom's friends. And her mom's friend was like, "Hey, I just saw on the news there's been a shooting on your mom's street." So Colleen had just talked to her mom about 2.5 hours before the murders, but she was worried about what was happening. So she drove to her mom's house, and she saw the police cars and the lights. And she said that when she pulled up, she just knew. So uh, Sharon raised Colleen in New Jersey, and it was just the two of them. They moved to Vegas so that Sharon could have better job opportunities, and she got her beauty license. Isn't she pretty? This was Sharon when she was younger. Um, she got her beauty license, and she started doing hair. Um, and when she started working at the beauty salon, she met another hairdresser there named Alice Wolf. This is Alice. So this is Sharon and Alice years ago. So they became really close friends. And Alice has described Sharon as being, really, really witty, really funny, very down to earth. Just nothing but great things to say about her friend. So Alice remembers hearing about Tom through Sharon when she found him. They originally met, Tom and Sharon met on Match.com. And Sharon had told Alice that Tom was like a special education teacher, but um, that he, I guess, wasn't working at the time. He was living in Utah, and Sharon had showed a picture of him to Alice and, was saying like she really wanted to meet him and she was really excited and they'd been talking and stuff. So Tom ended up coming to Vegas and he and Sharon went to a concert together. And Alice said that Sharon just fell head over heels in love with him. And not long after that, he wanted to take her on a 3-day cruise. And this was part of the 3-day cruise. They went on the 3-day cruise and they came back married. So, uh, I mean, at this point, look at in the pictures and everything, they look happy. So, to Colleen and Alice, Sharon's friend and her daughter, it seemed like Sharon was really happy with Tom. And, Tom had a boat at the time, so they would go out on the boat and they did a lot of traveling together and they were always doing fun things. So Colleen said that her mom just kind of showed up to her house one day with Tom, and she said that she didn't really know what to think about him. She said he had, this long, crazy hair, and suddenly he was just around all the time. But she said her mom did seem really happy. So, she wanted her mom to be happy, of course. So, so with everything going well, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, what happened to turn this into a murder investigation. So the hallway that we talked about, where I said I was going to show you another picture of that. So this is the hallway and this is where the garage door goes out into the garage. This is the mask. So you can see it's on the garage floor, kind of near the body, but not, you can see, I mean, it's not like right up close to it. It's not like he had it in his hand or it fell off his head or anything like that. Like you can see that it's kind of in its own spot, but it's not too far from the body. And then the, you can see blood stains are here in the garage. Now, 7 days after the murders, uh, police arranged a meeting with Tom, and this is the most bizarre thing, and I'm going to show y'all some clips from it. But they arranged a meeting with Tom at the house to do a video walkthrough. So they're wanting to kind of get a clearer idea of exactly what happened so that they can better understand it. So in the video, and I'm about to play off some clips from it, but in the video, Tom, it's hard to tell because some of it just seems like his personality, because the Lord knows this man is narcissistic and he loves to hear himself talk. But also, he does seem kind of intoxicated, and his brother did end up saying, later on that he drove him to that interview because he felt like he was his brother was unable to drive because he was intoxicated. They think possibly from the pain medication that he was on. So, so there's this bizarre walkthrough that he's doing, right? So he's telling police his version of events. Let me pull it up because man, it is. It's crazy to watch. Thomas Randolph. All right, let's see. All right, episode 1. I think I have the most of it on this clip. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can get to the part. All right. All right, so this is when they're meeting to do the walkthrough.
Gotten out of the vehicle, went inside the house.
Sharon gets out.
And we had him walk through. He ended up coming into the door.
I open it up. I get right here, and Sharon's laying.
Okay, so now this is the door that they walked through. The picture that we saw of Sharon where she's laying down, she's laying right here. And then you'll see there's like the little part where there's the hallway and the bathroom.
In the floor, face down. Her head's just barely in the bedroom, if that. So Sharon! Sharon!
So he's acting all of this out right now.
I thought I just seen like a shadow or something over this way, right there. Just thought, no, this ain't cool. I reached right up here.
He ducked into the office, retrieved a 9mm semi-automatic.
He said that when he came back to the door, he was confronted by a masked intruder. He described him. He had a ski mask on.
I'm coming out about the same time too, and about right here.
Okay, so now keep in mind while he's going through this, go ahead and start looking for the inconsistencies, because he's saying right now that he saw a shadow and then he ducked in and got the 9mm. Well, there was a conversation before where he said that he struggled with the intruder over the gun and stuff like that. There's some inconsistencies where he's talking about the mask and about the body. So pay attention to what he's
He kind of rushed up on me a little bit, and that's when I just pushed him. Boom, 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 and he started going out toward the shed. I don't know how many times I shot him, but I just kept right on going. Boom, boom, boom.
So he's sitting here acting this out for police, and he's like, boom, 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 boom. So the spot where he's standing right now is where he says he was when all of this happened. Now, notice that the thank you, 80s Music Man. Happy 2-month anniversary. I'm promoted to attorney now. Watch out now. Hugs, Brandi. Take care of yourself always. Go Buckeyes. LOL. And anyone that beats Bama. Yes, anyone that beats Bama. I can stand behind that. Thank you, 80s Music Man. We're glad that you're a member with us. Thank you. All righty. So, and you're still not going to be allowed to sneak in whenever you want, just so you know. Okay. Now, during this part, did you notice that while he's saying that he saw the masked man, notice where he's facing when he says that, and where he says that he's shooting. And then the masked man goes toward the garage. He said toward the shed, but it's toward the garage. That's where the garage door is. And he said that he kept shooting and that he shot him.
And he's just laying there, and then started coming back down this way. He wasn't moving.
So you can see this is where the garage door opens. So this is where that picture was that we saw where Mike Miller's body ended up. Now, at this whole time when he's reenacting this, what he said before to 911 about how, the mask came up and he saw it and that's how he knew who it was. None of that stuff is in this version of events.
Moving, some noise.
Thomas Randolph came back into the hallway.
Sharon.
We come up to an open doorway and then just kind of jump his head in to see if there was something in there.
What are you doing when you're doing this?
I'm just kind of trying to see if anything else is going on. You know, like there's anybody around.
Now, see, he's still, as he's talking to police and Detective O'Kelly, and he's kind of like reenacting this or whatever, he's still almost like he's in character.
Then after that, he said he went over and got the cordless phone.
And I called 911.
They have a conference. His wife was shot in the head. He needs medical advice.
Sir?
Yeah.
Is she awake?
No.
Okay, let's focus on your wife. Put her flat on her back.
So I tried to roll her over several times, and I couldn't get her over.
Okay, put her flat on her back.
It was like,
He was very dramatic. He's making these loud grunts.
So even the way that he's reenacting it, he's making he's almost like he's just replaying everything that he did, not to help, but it almost sounds like he's doing it very just theatrically.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Tilt your head back. Listen, okay?
Okay.
Now, he also says that that he was having so much trouble, rolling her over, that he was, they told him that she needed to be flat on her back, and he was having so much trouble rolling her over. But you'll notice in the pictures that the way that she was laying, it didn't look like she was even rolled over. It looked like that's how she fell.
When he got to the end of what he was telling us, then I had a big list of questions.
turn around, and he was coming down.
The thing that I wanted to focus on the most was that relationship between Randolph and Miller when the shooting started.
So when you first fire, he's right in this area.
Yeah,
Still facing you.
probably, maybe a little more that way, maybe a little more this way.
Okay, now he says, so Detective O'Kelly is trying to clear everything up. So he says, when you started firing, he was right here. Now, when you look at all of the forensic evidence, there's not blood everywhere to match up to what he's saying right here. And there was only one shell casing that was found in the hallway.
Had his mask on?
Yeah.
If he'd had his mask off, you'd have known it was Mike, right?
Oh, yeah. And I was still shouting. It wouldn't have mattered a bit.
Okay, so here he tells Detective O'Kelly that when he was shooting, he still had his mask on. But if he had taken his mask off, he would have known who Mike was, but he would have still shot him. Now, this contradicts what he said on 911, that the mask come up and, he knew who it was.
It seems like I shot him again, maybe like about right here. And then he started turning like this toward the door. And I shot.
So he's saying that he stood right here, and as Mike is going toward the door, he just shot and shot and shot and shot. But again, one shell casing for all of those shots. And the blood was primarily found in the garage.
I have emptied the gun, I don't know.
So you can see that he said, I may have emptied the gun, I don't know. So you can see that there's the shell casing right there.
We didn't have forensic evidence. We didn't have physical evidence that the shooting occurred inside that hallway. There was one casing in the hallway. Maybe a single round was fired as they were leaving the house and entering the garage.
So this is where the majority of course, of the blood was. This is where they found, you can see where they have shell casings marked as well. So this is obviously completely contradictory to what he had just gone over.
One of the other problems is on the night of the shooting, in the interrogation room, Thomas Randolph told the detectives that he didn't hear the shot.
Okay, so this is another inconsistency. When the interview was happening, he said, I didn't hear the shot. But on the 911 call, he's explaining to them what happened, and he said that he doesn't really know what happened, but he just heard the shot and he went inside. So again, he's contradicting himself. All right, let's move on to the next part. That, if y'all want to watch that part, that's the majority of that part, but there is some more of it. But it's so bizarre. If y'all end up wanting to
Tom
watch
said
it.
that the dispatcher
Now, this is
told him to
Detective
put
D-
Sharon flat on her back, and he
Detective
said that
Rob
he tried to
Wilson.
roll her over and he
These
couldn't get
are
it.
the detectives who worked the
He
case.
was being really
Detective Dino
dramatic
Kelly
as
is
he was
the
acting this out for
lead
police, and he was
detective,
even
and Rob
duplicating the
is
noises
his
that he was
partner.
making on the call. Now, at the end of the walkthrough, they asked
so,
about Mike. The explanation that he's
let's
giving as he's
see.
walking Detective Dean O'Kelly. First of all,
All right,
neighbor Mark
some more
Bartlett
of the
said that he was on the
inconsistencies that
phone with a
came
friend when
from
he heard the
the story.
gunshots. He commented something about it to his
Tom had said
friend, and he said that
that
was sometime
uh,
around 8:30.
dispatcher
Detectives were
told
able to
him
get
put
Mark's phone
Sharon flat on
records,
her
and it
back,
showed that the
and
call that he was
that
on
he
and the
tried to
time that
roll
he
her
heard the
over
gunshots was
and
actually
all of
about
that.
8:33 p.m.
So
Now, when
remember,
Tom was asked how
that's
long
one
it
of the
took from the time
consistencies
he
where it
opened the
doesn't-
door
her body
until he
doesn't
called
kind of
911, he said 2 to 3
add up
minutes.
to that.
However, the 911 call didn't come in until about 8:40.
Oh, there's two of me. I don't know. Oh, the podcast recording was going. I don't know why. Make sure I turn that off. Okay. For some reason, it's starting on my computer, but I got that turned off. All right. So, this is one of the neighbors. This is Mark Bartlett. He lives a few houses down the road, and he was on the phone with a friend when he heard the gunshots. So he commented to his friend about it, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, did you hear that? I just heard gunshots." And he told detectives that was sometime around 8:30. And detectives were able to get his phone records, and they showed that the call that he was on and the time that he heard the shots, they were able to narrow that down to 8:33 p.m. So now Tom was asked. Now 8:33 is the gunshots. Tom was asked when they were doing that walkthrough. They asked him, "How long did it take from the time you opened the door until the time you called 911?" And Tom said about 2 or 3 minutes. But the 911 call did not come in until 8:45, which means that leaves about 12 to 15 minutes unaccounted for. Now, normally 12 to 15 minutes is not, I mean, that's not a substantial amount of time, but it is if you're calling 911. And it is when you're saying, all of this happened so fast within 2 to 3 minutes. There are a couple theories about it. If you, one of them was, if you are wanting to, wait to call to make sure that, Sharon is dead before you call for help. And one of them was, if he staged if he grabbed the jewelry and stuff like that to, stage it as, the robbery, or, some people think that Mike did all of that, had all the jewelry and stuff himself. So a couple different theories on why he waited. But the fact that there were 12 to 15 minutes unaccounted for is a big problem. Now, another problem is the story about Mike, the intruder. We had talked about, no evidence in the hallway of the shooting and all of that. This, you can't really tell, but this is right here. That's the one shell casing that's in the hallway right there. And then, of course, the other thing is the mask. Tom said that when he shot Mike in the head, he still had the mask on, but that it came up a little bit during the struggle. Now, when they got the mask, there's a few problems with his version of events with this mask. there were no bullet defects in the mask, and he said he shot him in the head, but and he had the mask on when he did, but there were no bullet defects in on the mask, and there was also no blood on the mask, and obviously you can see where it's laying, and it wasn't still on Mike when police got there. So at this point, detectives are saying, all right, it looks like this intruder, this Mike guy, he shot Sharon in the head. That part looks, like that is what happened. And then he took his mask off, but they didn't know why yet. So if he's taking his mask off, maybe he was around somebody familiar or non-threatening, but it's another things that are true from his story, the things that they were able to verify. They did go to Santa Fe Hotel and Casino for dinner. You can see there's security footage of them leaving. You can see footage of them walking through the parking lot towards the car. He had said that they stopped to get gas. They stopped at a gas station and filled up, and security footage showed that they did stop right here, and they pulled out of the gas station about 8:26 p.m. and arrived home about 8:30, which lines up. Thank you, Shunk of Bacon. I appreciate it. Here's for some photo. Hope you feel better. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Y'all take care of me. So the security footage, basically from the stuff that happened before they got there, all of that stuff does line up with the story that he told. Now, the early June, let me see if I have a date for this. Okay, early June, 26 days after the murders, police brought Tom in for questioning. So it was another kind of bizarre interview. Tom tells detectives that, when they ask him to describe Sharon, he's like, oh, she's this, wonderful, amazing, best thing that ever happened to me. And he, then he starts talking about himself. Shocker. And he's like, well, but I'm a cocky MFer, and I always have been. And he said, and I'm also, and this is interesting to tell detectives during an interview. He said that he's like, I'm also a smart MFer. I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, I'm also a smart MFer, and I worked with criminal attorneys before. Now, they did confirm this. Like, he did used to work with criminal attorneys, but to say that to the detectives who are questioning you about your wife's death is just strange. The detective said that during this interview, there was a lot of stuff that he said where it seemed like he was just doing it kind of for shock value. And he also told them, he was really cocky during the interview. He told them, unless you arrest me, I'm not coming back here for another 30 to 40 days. Now, you would think that if he had really gone through everything he had just gone through, to be like, I'm not coming back here, unless you arrest me. It's just strange. But the most bizarre part about all of this was when he was walking out, they had finished up, and he's talking to them, and he's telling Detective O'Kelly, he's like, I don't like you. He called him an a-hole. And then he's talking to Detective Rob, and he's, telling Rob, but like, oh, but I talked to you like you're my best friend. And so it was really strange. But then when he gets ready to go, he takes a couple digs at the detectives, and he said, something about he grabbed his bag and said something about he's taking his bag with him because he doesn't trust them. And then he looks at Detective O'Kelly, and he asked Detective O'Kelly, he's like, is your wife is your wife good looking? And Detective O'Kelly you could hear it, he didn't answer right away. He kind of paused and he said, what do you think? And Tom's response was, to kill for. Why on God's green earth would you make that kind of comment to a detective who is questioning you about your wife's death? So it was really bizarre. Now, during the weeks following the death of Sharon, Colleen, her daughter, she did from the beginning. She felt like Tom was up to something, that Tom was involved with something. She said something wasn't right, but during the weeks that followed, she said she did try to, keep things as normal as possible with him, and she was struggling with this because she didn't believe his whole innocent act. But she said that she would still allow him to be, like grandpa to her kids and stuff like that. But she said that she called Tom and she was upset, and she called Tom and she said, what did you do to my mom? And Tom responded, I didn't do anything to your mom. Mike shot and killed her. And then he hung up on her. Now, is that the way to talk to and treat your wife's daughter who's mourning the loss of her mom? No. So, Colleen pretended to believe his story and let him go like he's grandpa, all that. So, Tom had what he believed was Sharon's will. So he felt like everything that Sharon had now belonged to him. That includes her house. And because, this house was hers. It's not something like they bought together. This house was hers. And before they got married and everything. So he believed that everything that Sharon had was now, now belonged to him. But remember Sharon's friend, Alice. So a few days after the murders, Alice reached out to Colleen, Sharon's daughter, and gave her another version of the will that voided out the one that Tom had. So Alice had said that she was actually with Sharon when she wrote out the will, and then they went together to have it notarized. And this is like a little clip of it from right here. But she told Alice that if anything happens to her, to give this will to Colleen. And in the will, you can see down here that her vehicle, jewelry, any and all other personal and real property go to my only child, Colleen Byer. And so every single thing that she had, she left not to him, but to her daughter. Now, this is kind of a huge deal for multiple reasons because Colleen and Alice took this as a sign that maybe, Sharon had begun to suspect that something was wrong, because for her to go behind his back and change the will without him knowing seems like, a pretty big deal. When he found out, he was pissed. He started leaving all these nasty phone messages on Colleen's phone, and he had left a message for her saying, no wonder your mom didn't like you, and all this kind of stuff, calling her names, just nasty stuff. And she had all of these recordings on her phone, and he later called and left another message, and he kind of halfway apologized. He was like, I apologize for getting so upset with you, but that's what happens when people look me in the eyes and lie to me. So he's accusing her of lying about this whole will thing. He's pissed off. He doesn't, he's not wanting to, believe that, he's now not going to have this, house that he thought he was going to be, living in forever, have to sell or do whatever he wants with it, that everything's going to her. So he's pissed. So he tells her, instead of being like, oh, your mom wanted this. This is great. He's like, well, now the lawyers are going to get all the money, and everything is just about money to him. And he said, he tells her in one of the messages too, he's like, I still get half because I'm married to your mama. And he told her that he forgives her on the message, like she's the one that needs forgiving. So, um, so, uh, meanwhile, detectives are still at this point trying to figure out exactly what happened. So they know kind of who shot who based on the forensic stuff, but they don't know why Mike Miller shot Sharon Randolph. So his family lives in North Carolina, so detectives decide to fly out to North Carolina and talk to them, and they're hoping for some answers or maybe some leads. So they first spoke to his two brothers. They have Rufus and Rico, and they spoke to Rufus first, and oh, we have a new member. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the group, the family. Ugh. All right, so um, so when detectives are talking to Rufus, um, Rufus said that Mike had told him that Tom had asked him to be a handyman for him, and Tom was going to be paying Mike $600 a week. Now, keep in mind, they only knew each other for about 4 or 5 months before the murder happened. So, but he said he was gonna be a handyman for him, paying him about $600 a week. Now, Rico and also, uh, Rufus was the first brother they spoke to, and he said, basically that, um, he didn't feel like his brother was capable of this, which of course, I know I'm sure no family member wants to believe that. So, I do understand that, but he didn't know anything about his brother having, guns or anything like that either. Um, thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate that. Brandi, hope you feel better soon. Bless you. Love watching and showing support from the UK. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll be better. I'm going to rest up real good today and tomorrow so that I can be ready for this trial on Wednesday because it's going to be a doozy. All right. So, let's see. So, Rufus is the first brother they talked to, and then they go and talk to Rico. Now, Rico told detectives that he had talked to Mike before everything happened, and that Mike seemed like he was doing well, and he was working for Tom. But he said also that he knows that Tom had given Mike a 9mm, but he doesn't know why. So obviously that's interesting too, because of everything that happened. Now the next interview that they did while they were out that way was with Mike's longtime friend. Her name is Judy Archie, and she's known Mike for like 10, 15 years, something like that. She'd known him for a really long time. So, this is where everything kind of starts to finally come together for them because, Judy said that Mike talked to her a good bit about Tom, and that one day he called her and he said, this dude wants me to kill his wife. And, she didn't know much about the circumstances surrounding it, but, she didn't know what Tom had offered Mike for it. And, she didn't know why he wanted him to do that. And she said that she asked Mike, well, why does he want you to kill his wife? And he said he doesn't know. But so she didn't know much else about it. She said that she told Mike to go to the police, but that's really all she knew. But now this is the first that they're hearing about this. So this information is how detectives finally kind of piece together what they think happened, and they kind of lay out their theory. So during the investigation, they found 4 life insurance policies that Tom had taken out on Sharon, and it totaled about about $360,000. So their theory is, at this point, they say Tom married Sharon to cash in on her life insurance when she died. Out of the 4 life insurance policies, he was the beneficiary on all 4. And they said that Tom met Mike and started basically kind of took him under his wing and kind of basically started grooming him to become willing to kill for him. So the night comes and Tom took Sharon out for Mother's Day to allow Mike time to get into the house to kind of prepare for all of this. They said that Mike had a key and he was in the bathroom waiting until Sharon came in alone. And as soon as she, was walking by and she got to where, he was positioned, he shot her. After that, they said Tom came in. Mike took off his mask because at this point now he's comfortable. He has no reason to have the mask on. So he thinks the job is over. He gets ready to walk out, and then Tom ambushed him and shot him as he was walking out. So that's why his mask was off and on the ground and had no blood or bullet holes. And that's why there was only the one casing in the hallway, because Tom waited until he was leaving to shoot him. So they take all of their this is okay. So there's a lot of crazy stuff too. So in the house, remember, Colleen has the keys to the house. Like she has the house is going to her. So she wants to go have new keys made, have the locks changed and all of that. So she has all of Tom's stuff in the house, and it's, as she's going through things, she finds a lot of crazy stuff. So he has duffel bags full of ammo, and including hollow tip bullets. He has a bulletproof vest. He has driver's licenses from his previous wives. He has, like, she found some, marriage certificates and divorce papers and stuff like that too. But I mean, I don't think anybody knew, any of them knew how many times he had been married either. So she has all of this stuff in the house that, that in her mom's house. So these are the 2 prosecutors from district attorney's office. So they take all of the information that they have at this point to the DA and they lay it all out. Now, those of us who watch trials know, we know that what Judy said is great information, but it's hearsay, so it's not gonna be admissible in court. So, with her account being hearsay, detectives basically don't have enough to go on to get an arrest warrant. So district attorney tells them, "You've gotta keep digging, and, we have to get more. If you have people that say stuff that, that Tom directly told them, they can use that, but they can't use stuff that, is hearsay stuff." Ashley, thank you so much. Happy anniversary. 3 months. Woohoo. Brandi, you're truly amazing. Even sick, you were here with us. We love you. And JT, thank you so much. We love y'all too. I appreciate it. I love being here with y'all, even when I'm sick. Alrighty, let's see. So, also, the thing about going and changing the locks, something else. When they were there, Detective O'Kelly went with Colleen to go change the locks on her mom's house when they did all this. And Tom showed up and he was like really agitated, and he was you can hear him. They've got recordings of it, and you can hear him saying, that he's like, I don't even understand what's going on here. And he tells him that, or he tells, well, I guess he's talking to Detective O'Kelly, apparently, but it's kind of loud for everybody to hear. But he said, if y'all don't have anything saying that I can't be here, then, this is my house and this is my address and I'm staying here. And Detective O'Kelly has to tell him, no, that's not the way it's going to go. And Tom called the detective an a-hole, and then told him that he is going to go get his stuff. And so Detective O'Kelly had to tell him again, no, that's not how it's going to work. You have to work it out with your lawyers. So the whole thing kind of freaked Colleen out, but it was just another Tom being Tom moment. So one of the things I forgot to say. So all of this meeting with the DA, it happened. So this is 9 weeks into the investigation. And the DA had told him, because of the hearsay and stuff, he said that these were, strong conclusions, but not absolutes. So he said that they have to continue the investigation, which is how everything ended up going into, they decided to start looking into the past relationships. So let's see, the investigation into past relationships. Okay, so these are the 6 wives, and these are the areas where they were traveling to go investigate and get information on them. So wife number 1 is Catherine. And they got married in 1975. So, let me actually see if I can get a better view on this one. Can't see over there. Well, here, let me just do it like this. I didn't finish doing all of these. I just got all the pictures together yesterday, but let me do it like this. Okay. So this is, you can see like, this is their wedding picture. There, and you can see like there's a fence and stuff. They got married in August of 1975. She was 18 years old and he was 20. This is in Utah at his parents' house. And she said she liked his parents. She said that she was, really drawn to them. But check that long hair, man. I guess he's always had the long hair. But so this is their backyard wedding. So so she did like the parents though. Let's see. So these are more pictures of him when he was younger. He's kind of intense looking, huh? They had 2 kids. Let me get this over here. So this is their daughter, Krista, and this is their son, Justice, which is ironic. But these are their 2 kids. So now Catherine is at this point, they go to speak to her because she's the first wife, but she is still alive. So I see Lucy's tummy too. Look at that little bitty baby tummy. You're so cute. She's a lazy little thing. So I got distracted by Lucy. All right, so she's still alive, living in Washington State. So they go and talk to her. She said that the first sign that they had of problems were, I guess she was making him oatmeal one morning, and he said that he got mad because she didn't put sugar in it, and he was like, my mom always puts sugar in my oatmeal. So thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Get to feeling better, love. Thank you. And JT for all you do. And thank you to all the amazing mods. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And yes, our mods are fantastic. All right. So the oatmeal thing. So he gets mad because he said, his mom always put sugar in his oatmeal. And I guess Catherine didn't that day. So he got all mad and threw his bowl of oatmeal at the wall. And she said that's like the first sign that she remembers of there being big red flags. He then started to deal drugs, and she said that he had been, he was getting arrested and stuff, but his parents would bail him out every time. Now, something else too. They asked if she had, or if he had an insurance policy on her. And she said, yes, he did. They divorced April 7th of 1983. And she said that he had gotten really kind of, scary, and she said he was abusive, and it wasn't necessarily even just it wasn't necessarily physical abuse. It was psychological abuse. Like, he was very controlling and narcissistic and just bad news. So they got divorced. Well, she met her current husband, Steve. This is Steve. She met her current husband, Steve, not long after that. Now, okay, so this is the first big aha moment during the investigation. Now, remember, this is wife number one. Steve and Tom used to be friends before they got married, before the marriages. So Steve and Tom were friends. Now, Steve told detectives that Tom asked him before, this is before Steve married Catherine. This is when Tom and Catherine were still married. Steve said that Tom asked him a few times, would bring it up, what would you be willing to do for money? And had asked him before, if he would be willing to kill someone for money if he knew he could get away with it. So Steve said that he brought this up multiple times to him. So obviously that kind of rings, a bell in the detective's heads, like, oh, okay, so maybe, this is a pattern. Like, this is something that he, had looked into doing before. All right. Then they go to the second wife, Becky. Now, look at Becky's smile. Becky has like the best smile ever. Just huge smile. Becky, they got married in 1983. You can see this is wedding picture. I love this one where she's got the cake on her nose. But this is where they're getting married. But look, she has literally the best smile ever. So Becky is wife number two. They get married in 1983. Now, Becky is one of the 6 who has passed away. This is back in Utah. This is Clearfield, Utah. When Becky died, they ruled it a suicide. So they had said that this is her aunt, Rosalie. They had said, when she passed away, she was in the bed and had shot herself in the head. Now, this is Rosalie, Becky's aunt, and this is Rosalie when, or Rose, but Rosalie. But this is her. Look, she looks the same too, doesn't she? But this is at Becky's wedding, her and her aunt Rosalie. So Rosalie became very important in the investigation because she gave a lot of new information. So Rosalie said a few things. Becky apparently had confided in her. And well, first of all, Rosalie did not like Tom. She did not like him. She said that he was an arrogant smartass. He's on the prowl. So she said that he was an arrogant smartass. She's going to get flip-flops. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Lay back down. We're not going out right now. Thank you. She had to go get, we're now, see, now y'all know when she's going to get me flip-flops. We're now on flip-flop number 1. Now she's staring at me. Nope, we're not going yet. Lay back down. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, she went to start the flip-flop mountain. We are now at flip-flop number 1. All right. So Rosalie. So Rosalie said that Tom was an arrogant smartass. She did not like him. She said that Becky used to confide in her, that they were really close, and Becky would talk to her and say, things that were really hard on her with her marriage with Tom. She said that Tom, I guess, had a room in the basement that he kept locked, and he would have like other women down there. And Becky told Rosalie that there were times when he would, want to be with other women down there, and he would basically have her go down there and watch him with other women. And she said that that killed her. She didn't want to do it, but she loved him, so she did it. That was interesting to me because there's also an interview many years later, or many years down the road, where Tom is saying something. He's talking about all of his wives, and the thing that he says about Becky is that Becky would be whoever he wanted her to be. So, which when I heard that interview, this interview stood out to me because he said something about, I could tell her that I want steak and that I want her to serve it to me in a clown costume. And she would say, okay. And then ask if he wanted her to be a sexy clown or like a clown with the floppy shoes and the nose and all of that. So when he said that, I was like, okay, well, here we are with him saying that he could make her do whatever he wanted her to do. And then, which is exactly the thing that, Rosalie, her aunt, is saying that she did, but that she, didn't like it. It's really sad. Now, another thing, they were having, this is more Becky. Look at her smile. They were having pretty big financial problems. So they were, Tom and Becky were behind on rent. Their lights had gotten shut down. They were in a really bad place. Rosalie said that they came and borrowed money from her. She has a receipt for it. She said that that it was $2,000 and it was to help get them out of debt. Now, she said that out of, all the things that he could have done with this money, that what he did with it was pay their insurance premiums, their life insurance premiums. Now, Rosalie said that Tom had 3 life insurance policies on Becky and that he was the beneficiary for all of them. So again, this is a pattern, multiple life insurance policies. Becky is young and healthy. Like, it doesn't seem to make any sense. And if your lights are getting shut off and the first thing you want to go pay is your life insurance policies, that's pretty sketchy. So, but Becky's family says that, she was very like smiling and happy and, and you can see like she's a beautiful woman and she does have like the best smile ever. So, But being with Tom ended up being, pretty hard on her. When they first met, she was really excited and happy. Everything was great. He was a smooth talker. Her cousin said that she wasn't a fan of Tom either. She thought he was a show off. But he was working. It was during this time that he was working for a law firm trying to become an attorney. And the happiness and the, everything is, hunky dory, all of that didn't last. Things got pretty bad and their relationship got pretty bad. At this time, Tom is still doing drugs, and he had actually introduced Becky to drugs, and she ended up, he from what all of her friends and family say, it basically just kind of, he was going down and he was trying to take her down with him. So when things got really bad, her cousin had talked to Becky and said, why don't you just leave? But Becky told her cousin that she was scared of what Tom would do to her if she left. So she told her cousin that she was going to run to her house in Clearfield, the house that she had shared with Tom, and pick up a few things, but she never came back. So she was, that's one of her cousins. And that's another one of her cousins. So this is the house. It's in, you can see, I mean, it's a nice house. But this is the house that she went to. Now, she was supposed to be going to get some of her things and coming back, but they ended up finding her. You can see she's laying in the bed, and she was shot in the head. Now, there was she was in the upstairs bedroom. There was a suicide note left on the kitchen counter, and she was lying upstairs. This is a waterbed. She had the blanket kind of pulled up over her, and the way that she was shot. Okay, so the lead investigator, the detectives went and did an interview with him, and he was telling them that things did not seem to add up. He said that where the gun fell, like the way that it fell, he did not think that this was a suicide. And he said that everything about it kind of felt odd. He also said the impression of the barrel on her head was abnormal because the way that he's describing it in the interview is he's basically saying like she would kind of have to be a contortionist in order to have pulled the trigger herself the way that things were. And even like the way that her hand was laying, and where the gun fell and stuff like that. He said that everything about it was just, did not seem like a suicide to him. So he thought, the investigator, he wanted to go back because they originally ruled it a suicide, but because things didn't add up, he wanted to look further into it. So he went back to investigate more, and he thought that the scene had been secured by the county attorney's office, but I guess because it was ruled a suicide, they didn't secure the scene. So by the time the investigator got back with the warrant, everything that he wanted to look at was gone. Like Tom had come in the house and he had scoured the place clean. So the carpet had been pulled up, the walls had been cleaned, basically anything that had any of the evidence that he was wanting to look at, everything was gone. This is Dick Martin is the name of the investigator. All right. So this is the house too. You can see, they have like the crime scene tape and stuff, but all of this was, none of it was secured when he got back. And then this is him. This is the investigator now, or more recently. So, Tom cashes in the life insurance policy that he had for Becky, and it's over $500,000, which is a lot of money now, but especially a lot of money back then. So he cashes in the life insurance policy. The death remained a suicide for the next couple of years until Detective Scott Conley, I think. You can tell I haven't organized all this yet. Yeah. Detective Scott Conley from Ogden, Utah. He when he got involved, everything changed. So Conley is not a fan of Tom. Let's see. Okay, so Tom Randolph, Department of Public Safety, licensed to carry a concealed firearm. So they have Tom's license to carry a firearm. They have, check out that mugshot. And then I'm trying to pull these so you can see them. I haven't put them all in the slideshow yet. There's another. Looks like he has a perm in that one. So basically, Conley has a huge file, like a huge case file on Tom. He said that he first got involved with this because, or first got Tom's name because Tom wanted to be a major like drug dealer. And this was when he was in Ogden. Now, the movie Scarface, apparently Tom had gotten like an infatuation with Scarface, and he wanted people to start calling him Tony Montana, which actually, you look at Melly's case file too, and even his email and stuff, he had his name listed as Melly Montana. What is it with this? Everybody wants to be Scarface. Y'all know Scarface died, right? Like, it was not a cute death either. Like, he didn't die peacefully at home, loved with his family. No, it like, y'all saw the ending of that, right? I don't know why everybody wants to be Scarface. All right. So anyway, one day, this woman calls Detective Scott Conley and tells him that her husband had been approached by Tom about killing Becky. So this is the first he's heard of that. Her husband's name is Eric Tarantino. So this is Eric. This is Eric in the 80s, which I think he is just, I would wear those glasses right now. This is Eric in the 80s, and this is him years later. But so this woman calls Conley and says her husband, Eric, this guy, had been approached by Tom about killing Becky. Now, remember, Becky's already dead at this point. So they go and talk to Tom, and basically he tells them that Tom had befriended him years earlier and started to, almost kind of like groom him in a way to try to get him to kill Becky. Eric and Tom had become really close, and he was telling the detective that Tom had come up with like 4 or 5 different plans to basically just take Becky out for profit. So Lisa Wilmot, if it's any consolation, I do not want to be Scarf. Good. Then maybe you've seen the ending. I'm happy for that. Oh, oops. I got my foot in Lucy Cam. I'm going to attract the wrong crowd with that. Let me move my foot this way. All right. So, anyway, so he said that there were like 4 or 5 different plans that Tom had come up with to just take Becky out and kill her and make money off of it. So Eric Tarantino became incredibly important for this investigation and even for the later investigations. So about 3 months after Sharon's murder. The investigation's still going on. So they fly out to New Hampshire where he's living and, want to go talk to him. So basically he tells them that he met Tom because Tom was the foreman at a cabinet shop that Eric was working at the time. And it started like, that's what I was thinking. That's why I was like, yeah, I need to, I don't want to draw the wrong crowd. I need to move my foot out of the Lucy cam. I digress. All right. So he said that originally, like, he kind of admired Tom. But because Tom can be charismatic until, the point where he just doesn't shut up. But he said that he kind of fell into Tom's trap. So Tom started off by having Eric do like, odd jobs for him. And then, which sounds familiar. That's kind of what he was, the situation he had going with Mike Miller too. So he started off by having him do odd jobs for him. And then he, would invite him to dinner, and they ended up getting closer. Eric said that some of the odd jobs that he was doing and the things that he was doing, he said he ended up going and collecting money for people who owed Tom money. Now, this is for the drugs that Tom was selling. So some of this was like just people on the streets and stuff, but some of this was like he would even be collecting money from police officers. So at this point, Tom was selling drugs even to like police officers and lawyers and stuff like that in the area. So they're getting closer, and Tom starts planting all of these little seeds here and there, kind of like, testing the waters and asking if Eric would be able to kill somebody for insurance money. He never, in the beginning, never said anything about who. He was just doing the same thing, basically like what Steve had said, with wife number one, where he was asking, would you do this, whatever. And now Eric's saying he was doing the same thing with him now with wife number two. So he said that, he asked him about it several times. And then finally, Tom just came out one day. They were shooting guns in the canyon, and Tom had a 22 with a silencer on it. And he finally came out and told him that day, like, it's my wife. I want you to kill Becky. And at this point, Eric had gotten close to the family. He had gotten close to Becky, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. So they had gone through all of these scenarios before about, killing someone for insurance money and the different schemes. But he said that the whole time they were talking about it, he didn't know anything about, Tom thinking that he was going to be doing this to Becky. So when he told Tom no, Tom told him, well, now you know too much. So it's either you do it or you got to go. So basically now he's telling him, like, if you don't kill her, I'm going to kill you. So when Eric told Tom no, he said, he became fearful. Like Tom, he didn't trust Tom anymore, obviously. And Tom started acting really crazy. He told this story too. One time, like, Tom would come in and hold a gun to his head and stuff. And he said he never knew if the gun was loaded or not. But then Tom would turn around and like shoot something. So then, like, he'd shoot a chair and stuff. And then he'd be like, okay, well, I guess the gun was loaded. But what's crazy, he talks about this one time that Tom put a rag with chloroform over his mouth and his nose. And so Eric passed out. He said when he woke up, Tom is like standing over him laughing. How crazy is that? So, so they had talked about all these different scenarios, like, about how to kill, which again, he didn't know it was Becky at the time, but he had said, it could be like an accidental shooting. Remember that, like cleaning the gun or something, it misfire. It could be an accidental shooting. Remember that. That was one of the scenarios. He also said it could be some kind of like car incident or a fire while she was sleeping, and then she would, burn up or whatever. So Eric, was obviously fearful at this point, but he said that he couldn't really turn to anyone because at this point now, who's he going to turn to? Tom is selling drugs to all the police officers. Tom is selling drugs to, the attorneys and stuff. He didn't have anybody that he felt safe enough to go to. So he had become, friendly with Becky. So he wanted to, and his wife, so he wanted to warn Becky. So he called her and he told her, look, Tom is going to kill you. He has, insurance policies on you. I have seen them with my own eyes. They, he keeps them at his mom's house. They're in the drawer, even tells, exactly where they're at his mom's house. And he warns her, and then he knows that, Tom's going to kill him for doing that. So he packs up and he kind of ran. It was about a year later. His wife called him and said, she didn't even say, he answered the phone. She didn't say, hello, no kind of anything. Her first words were, she's dead. And Eric said that he dropped the phone because he knew what had happened. So, November 30th, 1988, this is now, this is now, 2 years after, Becky's death. So for 2 years, it remained a suicide. And 2 years after her death, they arrested Tom for her murder. With the information from Eric and all of the other information that Detective Conley had on him, it was enough for them to finally arrest him. Now, obviously for this, Eric was like the key witness in the trial. Tom knew that Eric was the key witness in the trial. So he had a conversation with this guy who he thought was a hitman, but it turned out it was an undercover police officer. So he is trying to get, arrange a hit on Eric so that Eric can't testify against him. And it was an undercover police officer, not a hitman. So, sucks to suck. Now he's got another charge. Eric was put into protective custody, and then they went through the trial. The trial started in April of 1989. And there's all kinds of clips because, it was kind of a big deal at the time. But there's all these like clips of him, being walked to court and everything. So April 1989. Is that what I said? I think it's what I said. So you can see like there's news coverage and stuff outside the courtroom, and look at their fancy court. But the defense gets up there and says, this was suicide. This has already been resolved. This, they're coming after him for nothing. That, Becky took her own life. This doesn't have anything to do with him. The prosecutors said, nope, this is murder, and this is how we know. And they had Eric testify. There was this one thing too. This is it. So they were talking about this song. So Eric said that there was this one time where Tom had jumped up on the bed and he was like singing along with this Rod Stewart song. And these are the lyrics. The part that he was singing, it says, or should I act quite cold and deliberate, or maybe blow out her brains with a bullet? They'll think suicide. They won't know who done it. I'm going to kill my wife. Now, it's not one of those warm and fuzzy songs, like this is not Taylor Swift, but it's one of those things that came up in court because, Eric said that he had jumped up on the bed and was, singing this and all excited about it. And then of course, it ended up being what happened. So, Tom gets up there and he testifies for over 2 hours. And they said that it was like kind of a long and like rambling narrative. And he was basically up there like just dogging Becky. He was saying, you know, what it was like to be married to someone. He described her as like disturbed and depressed and dependent on drugs. Now, her family was all in the courthouse, and they were kind of pissed off about this because, you know, like I said earlier, her family knew that she had, you know, resorted to drugs, but they said, you know, he's the one who got her addicted on it. Like he was, you know, and he was selling it and stuff. Like she didn't start with any of that until him. So it goes into he gets up there and talks and rambles and goes on and all that. So these are pictures of him. So jury goes out. This is her family waiting. Check out that fancy news coverage. So Becky's family was waiting at the courthouse. They get called back in, and there's a verdict. And Tom was acquitted. They it's hard to know exactly what the jury, you know how it goes. Juries aren't always allowed to hear everything. So it's hard to know exactly what they heard and what, you know, made them make up their mind. But he was acquitted. So you can see this big old smile. They go to interview him, and, you know, he's grinning, and he, you know, thinks that, you know, they asked him how he feels, and he's like, oh, I feel wonderful. Now, remember how I said that there's two parts in this whole thing that are like really, really eerie? This is Martha DeGraw. This is Becky's mom. So during this interview, she told reporters, you know, obviously she was upset with the verdict. So she's telling reporters that she thought it was unfair and unjust, and she said he's guilty. Now, this is the part that's so eerie. She literally said, he's just going to kill somebody else's daughter, so beware. She literally said that in this interview. He's just going to kill somebody else's daughter, so beware. That, like, when I heard that, it gave me chills. So, but now remember, Tom walked out of the courthouse thinking that, you know, he was just off scot-free and he gets to go on about his happy life. But that's not true, because he, you know, still had those charges on him for conspiracy to kill Eric Tarantino. So he pled guilty to that, and he served 18 months. But get this. He gets out, and then he sued Davis County, he sued Ogden Police Department, and he sued Clearfield Police Department for libel and slander and for being prosecuted. So he sued them, even though everything they said was, you know, was true. He sued them, and they ended up paying him off. So he gained money. He got money off of all of this, more money than he had already gotten for what he did. He gained from this, and then the settlement came, and he took off. So 1994 is Leona. This is wife number 3. At this point, he had moved. This was in Indiana. Now there's not much that I could find on her. There's an interview where he says, you know, she liked to party and sometimes she would forget to come home. And, you know, that's good for him, but he's not okay with that being done to him. So their marriage didn't last. They were only married for about 11 months before they got a divorce. So she is one of the wives who has passed away, but she's the one that it was not suspicious. Like she ended up getting cancer. So she died 10 years after their divorce. But I think it's interesting that the things that he was doing to the other wives, apparently she did to him, and he seemed, or according to him, and he didn't like it. So wife number 4 is Gaina. This is only 1 year later. So they got married in 94, were married for 11 months. And then in 95, he married Gaina. So this is Gaina. She is still alive. She's living in Indiana. And she got out of Dodge. So here's Gaina's story. She met Tom through an ad, like a personals ad in the newspaper. And for those of you youngsters, a newspaper is this paper thing that has stories in it that used to come, daily and weekly to the front doorsteps before there was, internet and phone access on everything. And before there was like Match.com or Tinder, there were personal ads in the newspaper. So I've seen stuff in there before. It's like, single white female seeks, companion who loves, getting drunk and walking on the beach or whatever. So you put in who you are and what you're looking for. And it's like these little personal classified ads. So that's how they met, with a classified ad in the newspaper. So they went out for a period of time, and she said, he was really nice and would bring her flowers and all of that. He was really good to her, and said that she was stupid enough to get married. She said that he took out an insurance policy on her within a month, like almost right away with them getting married. All the kids in the house Googling newspaper. What is a newspaper? I know I've heard of those before. Don't they sell those with phone books? I don't know what a newspaper is. So he gets an insurance policy on her right after they get married. Now, at this point, look, Tom is going to Tom. So he goes and he gets into this big bar fight. Apparently, there ends up being some kind of shooting. And nobody was killed, but there were some people that were injured. So she gets a call from the police department because Tom has been involved in all this. Now, someone that she knows at the police department is telling her, like, hey, do you know about this dude? Because like he's got, this and this and this in his past. And she didn't know anything about any of it. Apparently he didn't put that in his personals ad in the newspaper. So, fresh out of the pokey, acquitted on wife's murder, looking for love. So they asked her if he had taken out a life insurance policy on her, and told her about the situation in Utah and the murder of a second wife and, everything. So she was pretty freaked out by this. So get this. Remember when I said, that one of the options was, an accidental shooting? So she tells detectives that this is what led for her to leave. She was sitting at the dining room table, and Tom was sitting there too. And she said that they were like really close to each other, both at the table. And he was sitting there cleaning his gun, and it went off. She's right there. So it almost hit her. She said she like freaked out, jumped up all of a sudden. There's this shot. It almost hits her. There's a hole in the floor. She, freaks out, and he's just like, oh, oops, I didn't realize it was loaded. So that scared her enough. It was not long after that. She said that he had gone to work, and she packed up and left and got out of there and went into hiding. Thank God, because that was probably, that could have been an attempt, to take her out too. He had the life insurance policy on her already. The accidental shooting, like, accidentally cleaning my gun and shot you. That was one of his plans from before. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was, him screwing it up, but trying to, do an accidental shooting to get rid of her. Crazy. So during this marriage, Tom had apparently, Gaina told them about a friend that he had named Glen Morrison. So Glen lives in Kentucky. So they go talk to Glen. This is Glen. So during his marriage to Gaina, Tom had approached Glen, and it's literally, once again, same pattern. So he asked him if he would be willing to kill for money. So Glenn said that Tom was, really into guns, and he was talking about, where all he kept them and stuff like that, kind of giving detectives information about all of that. And then he told them how Tom had mapped out his plan to kill Gaina. So now here we are, wife number 3, plan number 3, talking to somebody else about trying to off his wife for money. He said he had the insurance policy, and the plan that he wanted Glenn to come in and shoot Gaina and then shoot him in the leg so that it looked like he was also a victim. So again, here we are. Tom's out there tomming. So detectives move on to wife number 5, Frances. And this one's really sad. Oh, and by the way, Glenn was like, no, thanks. I'm not going to do that. So this one's really sad. Because in videos and stuff, like Frances, oh, this is spelled wrong. Frances seemed just super sweet. So this is wife number 5. They got married in 1997. She is one of the wives who passed away under crazy circumstances. It's taken me forever to explain this case because there's a ton of stuff in this case. That's why. So, Frances is wife number 5, 1997. This one really does make me sad. And her daughter is one of the ones who testified in the recent trial. And it's really sad. So she is no longer with us, but her sisters live in Indiana. So detectives go out to Indiana to speak to them. Their names are Carolyn and Hilda. Now, Hilda said that, Tom, as soon as he met Frances, like he was already pushing to get married right away and stuff like that. They got married after 6 months. So Frances had a heart condition that was serious, but not so serious that it required like immediate surgery. So Tom, being Tom, convinced her that she needed the surgery. So she went and had it. So this is her after surgery. So she came out of surgery. She was, in recovery, had been in recovery for a couple days, was sitting up, eating, everything was fine. Her daughter, Rachel, let's see. This is Rachel. Her daughter, Rachel, was there at the hospital with her, and Tom was there too. So, Rachel just in interviews and stuff, like she goes on and on about her mom and, how, like just how sweet she was, how she was like the sweetest person that you'd ever meet. And she said that they moved in with Tom in Indiana and they all stayed there until they moved to Utah. And at first he seemed like picture perfect dad. He got her into like gymnastics and cheer and taught her to skate and stuff like that. He was basically like role model. Then as things do, things started to take a turn, and Tom and her mom started fighting a lot more. So so she goes in to have this heart surgery and she has a valve replaced. And like I said, she came out, she's doing okay. She's doing fine for days. So Rachel is at the hospital in the room with her, and Tom is there. And Tom tells Rachel, he's like, hey, can you give me a moment, alone with your mom? And now keep in mind, she's up and talking, everything's fine. So Rachel walks out and is going to give Tom some time alone with her mom. And about 30 or 45 minutes later, look at, oh, wait, wrong one. I love her. Oh. She's so funny. This is why Lucy Cam is the best now. She's like side-eyeing me too. All right. So, anyway, so Rachel walks out, and about 30 or 45 minutes later, Tom comes out and tells her, your mom is dead. So she said that he was fine, or she was fine. Everything was fine. And now all of a sudden she's dead. So obviously Rachel's confused. She's like, what happened? Like, I was just in there. She said that Tom like dropped down to his knees and was, crying and saying, oh no, not another wife, all about Tom. So the doctors come in and ask Tom if he wanted to have an autopsy done on Frances. And Rachel said that Tom was like, no, I don't want that because I don't want her cut into a bunch of little pieces. And then he had her cremated. So obviously Rachel's like, something's off with that because there 100% should have been an autopsy. And Rachel flat out says, what are the chances that she was, up and talking and doing fine. And then 30, 45 minutes after I walk out, now all of a sudden she's dead. Tom also told Hilda, Frances' sister, a different version of the story. He told Hilda that she died on the operating table. So the thing that sucks about Frances is that because she died in the hospital, her death was not ruled suspicious because it was in a medical facility after surgery. But obviously her sisters were like, no, this is definitely suspicious. So one of her sisters actually even said that before she even went to the hospital, like Frances had, like, her cheeks had gotten really swollen and stuff like that. And her sister swears that Tom was trying to like poison her or something before she even went into the hospital. So, So this is Rachel and Tom, and then that's Frances and Tom. So this is them in the hospital. Now this part is kind of creepy. So Frances' sister has this video, and Frances is on video, and you can hear Tom is like coaching her on, like, what, like, he's kind of orchestrating this whole thing. And he's saying, because she even said, she's like, okay, do you want me to, you want me to say it now? You want me to go now? But she's saying that she's making this tape so that people will know what she wants. And she's talking about what she wants after she dies. But then she says, something about, this isn't like she knows she's going to die and she's making this. She wasn't, yes, she had a heart condition, but it wasn't like a fatal thing. This was, something that she was living with. It was, she was okay. So she even says in the video, I'm hoping that we're just going to make this and put it on a shelf and, we're never going to be apart. We're going to live together happy and all of this stuff. But that wasn't Tom's plan. So he does this eerie video, and then Tom, this part makes me mad too. So Tom profits from the life insurance on Frances, but then he also turns around and sues the hospital and gets this huge settlement for her death in the hospital. So not only is there a possibility that he offed her while she was in there, but he also sued the hospital and made money, and they don't know how much. One of his sisters says that they think it could be like up to 1.2 million. So crazy. So that's the last wife before before he married Sharon, which is the one that they're investigating now. Wilma asked, what's he doing with all this money? So that's the thing. There's a lot of it that is unaccounted for. Now, he had different things. Like he had boats, and he had, motorcycles, and he had stuff like that. But I mean, other than that, he basically like just lived off of other women. So he would live off of these women, and he partied a lot. He, women and drugs were two of his vices. So he also partied a lot, but I mean, man, he like blew through some cash. All right. So they take all of this information from the investigation, and they go back to the DA, and they're like, okay, look, like this dude has a pattern. And, they go through how he's approached all these different people about, killing his wives for profit and all of that. They talked to him about the star witness in the, first trial, and everything that they have found. So the case is really complex because it requires witnesses basically from like all over to come in. I mean, at this point they have Washington State, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Utah, and New Hampshire. So they have at least 7 states that they would have to fly people in to testify. So they take it back to the DA, and the DA agrees to, take this to a grand jury. So in the meantime, you can see the pictures right here. They have set up a date for Tom. Oh, and here's one of the motorcycles I was just talking about. They had set up a time and date for him to go to the house that Colleen now had ownership of, and get some of his personal belongings out. So police were going to be there. Lawyers were going to be there. Colleen did not want to go, so her husband did go, but she didn't want to be around him. So while they were at the house, they were like, this is the perfect time because we know where he's going to be. He's going to be here. So they decided to go ahead and give him a Markham notice. So, which is basically like a notice of indictment to let him know that, there's going to be a grand jury that's looking at the case. So they call him over there, and they tell him, hey, you're, just so you know, you're going to be indicted on, murder of your wife and of Mike Miller and conspiracy to commit murder. And he's just like, okay. And then signs it, like, just, no big deal. And he signed it, and he was allowed to leave. And that was kind of that. So it goes to grand jury, and grand jury is like, yeah, this dude needs to be locked up. So January of 2009, Tom at this point is living with his mom back in Clearfield, Utah. So the detectives here in Vegas drive to Utah. This is January of 2009. They go to the door of his mom's house, and they go to detain him. This is when he's getting the Markham notice. So, all right, so check this out. So this is, they go to the door. Look at this. He's like, you can see he's got his hand on his gun. And you see that he's got his hand back here, his right hand, and he, won't show his hands. And they're telling him, show us your hands, and he won't. So then they pull guns on him. They're like, you're under arrest, whatever. And he still is keeping his hand like hidden behind the door, or the door jamb or whatever. And he won't pull his hand up. So this was entertaining to watch because screw this guy. So they tase him and he falls, and he's in nothing but his skivvies out there in the snow, and he falls on his mama's porch because they tase him because he wouldn't listen. Now, why's he got a glove on? Why's he got a glove on? So he ain't got nothing but skivvies and a glove. Why? So they tase him and they walk him in his skivvies to the van and put him in the van. And he's saying, to take him back. And he's saying, that he can't walk and whatever. So they take him to the hospital, get medical clearance, whatever. He's fine. And then they go to take him to jail. Then comes the trial. So this is trial number 1. Now, keep in mind, the trial that we are about to watch is the second version of this trial. And this is why it's like, this is why we're even doing it. This is why it's such a big deal. They are, oh, let me say this too. There are so many interviews. There is nothing that Tom loves more than money other than Tom. Tom loves Tom more than anything else in the world, and he loves to hear himself speak. It is entertaining and also disgusting at the same time. So, because he loves the attention so much, he does, like, I don't even know how many interviews. I mean, just over and over the course of, however many years. What is it, 2009? And from January 2009 when he gets arrested until even, like after his other trial and stuff like that. I mean, he just over and over, he does all these interviews, and he just talks and talks and talks. So when they do 3 weeks after his arrest, is his first interview with NBC, and they go in and they're talking to him, and they're like, this is the second time that you're facing the death penalty. He's like, yeah, it's really no big deal. It is what it is. And he said that he's glad that they made it a death penalty case because otherwise, he would have felt cheated. Like, who says that? So he's so all about himself. Now, he goes through attorneys like he goes through wives. So one of his first attorneys, you will recognize, this is the attorney, and you know who this fella is. This is O.J. Simpson himself. And this attorney is Gabe Grosso. So Gabe Grosso said that, he's a good attorney, and he wins about 75 to 80% of his trials. He was part of the Palace Station robbery thing that OJ had to go through. He was one of the attorneys for that. So, Tom being Tom, saw all this because all this is, Vegas. And so Tom being Tom saw all that, and he's like, oh, only the best for myself. So he wanted OJ's He wanted OJ's attorney. So what Tom wants, Tom tries to make happen. So, okay. So Grasso says, in an interview, he's like, basically, this entire case is going to be solely based on Tom's past, because everything that they have against him is totally going to be, not related to just what happened right here. It's Grasso's like, this is all about his past. So he goes and he meets with Doofus here in jail, and he's Tom is telling Grasso in this meeting that he wants bail. He's like, well, I need you to get me bail because I need to be out so that I can, help with my defense. And he said that, he basically, Grasso even said, he was like, even though Tom is sitting his fanny in jail, wearing scrubs and, or eating ramen noodles, he still is fully believing that he is running the show. So, he's saying, hey, you need to get me out on bail because, obviously I'm the smartest one in the room and I need to help with my own defense. Grasso also said that Tom loves to talk, but he kept telling him, you need to learn to keep your mouth shut. He also said that Tom is incredibly cocky and that, Tom always feels like he's running things. And Grasso ended up coming off of the case. He withdrew because Tom couldn't pay him. He wanted this hotshot attorney, but he didn't have that hotshot attorney money anymore. So Grasso withdrew from the case. And he said in an interview too that he thinks that that was kind of the beginning of Tom understanding how to kind of work the system a little bit, and that he saw this as a way to continuously delay this whole process. So Grasso thinks that was kind of the, beginning of what's in store. So he gets a new attorney. His new attorney is in the judge pretty too. He gets this new attorney, Brent Bryson. And there's an interview that's really funny too with Bryson. So Bryson says, he's the attorney while they're going through all of this stuff about, the state at this point is looking to bring in evidence and bring in stuff from the trial in Utah. Now, he was acquitted in the murder of his second wife, but and that case is actually at this point sealed. But they are having a hearing to go over this. Lucy. They are having a hearing to go over this because Nevada wants access to that file and to be able to make that admissible. So they have a hearing to go over this. Now, they go back and forth about whether or not Utah evidence is going to be unsealed and if it's allowed in, because these are prior bad acts, and also he was acquitted on that, so they aren't sure what the judge will say. But Bryson gives this interview one time too, and I kind of feel for him because you can tell that like he's trying to be patient with Tom, but I mean, how can you be patient with Tom for longer than 20 seconds? So, but he became an attorney because he said that he was actually in a bar fight, and there's some clippings from it and stuff, but he used to be a musician. He was in this bar fight and he saw this guy was like attacking him with a beer bottle, and he held up his wine glass and whatever happened, like, it broke and everything. And the guy who was coming at him with the beer bottle, his carotid artery was severed. And so Bryson was charged with manslaughter. He was acquitted, but they said, it was self-defense and that it wasn't, on purpose or anything like that. So he was acquitted, but he said that that's what made him decide to be a lawyer. So I feel like, it's almost like he has this sense of almost like wanting, because of his second chance at life. Maybe he's like, kind of wanting to try to help or whatever, but you can tell that he tries to be patient with Tom, but Lord help. So he visits him in jail. This is for a defense strategy meeting, and Bryson said that Tom understood the law, which kind of makes him the client that can be like a pain in the butt too. But during this meeting, Tom tells Bryson that he thinks that he should just look at the jury and be like, look, we've talked to y'all. This is really important. It's a big responsibility, but y'all been lied to. You're just fluff. Like, none of this matters. You don't matter because you've been lied to. And Bryson's like, you know what? No, I'm not going to start the whole trial by telling the jury that they're nothing but fluff. So you can tell that, like, even though he knows the law, his narcissism and his like crappy personality come in, and this is going to be a pattern with the other attorneys too. It comes in way more than, it's a lot harder to control, I guess. It takes over more. Like, knowing the law doesn't mean anything if you can't control your crappy personality. So, oh, and another thing to note, Bryson said in an interview that Tom wants to like show everyone, I'm smarter than you and I control this and I control the situation, which is interesting because that's like literally the same thing that Grasso said. So, so they make the decision. This is one of the interviews. This is his attorney talking to him, the cameraman. So, you can see there's like newspaper. This is a newspaper, kids. This is a newspaper. Should the jury know that he was acquitted of murder? So, they went through all this. So, the judge made a ruling. This is 18 months after his arrest. The judge made a ruling on the prior bad act stuff and decided that the Utah case can be allowed in at the trial. So this is like, where Bryson goes to meet with him and is telling him the news and all of that. And he, flat out tells him like, this is going to make the case a lot more difficult for us. So during this meeting, oh, Tom, during this meeting, you can see that they had the camera here. So, Tom loves the cameras, loves the attention. And, once again, you have an attorney here who's saying Tom does not know when to shut up. So, Tom would go off on these tangents and Bryson would literally have to be like, hey, stop, chill out. He had to literally stop him mid-sentence from talking when he was saying stuff during all of this. And it wasn't long after that there was a falling out between them and or between Tom and one of the other attorneys or something. Anyway, Tom ended up firing them all and, replacing them again. So this, because Tom loves Tom, NBC goes back to Clark County Detention Center to do another jailhouse interview. So for this one, Tom tells NBC, I want you to come talk to me. He tells the producer, I want you to come talk to me, but I don't want you to bring any attorneys. The attorneys are annoying and they don't let me talk. So he tells them, hold on, I got to take our little display names off so you can see the full level of cuteness of what this little girl is doing. You're very pretty. She's so funny. All right, so he tells the producer that he wants him to come back and talk to him, but he's like, don't bring any attorneys. And Tom's like, I don't understand these lawyers. I've been through a murder trial before, so I know how this is supposed to work. So Tom, literally the definition of narcissist, says that he knows a murder trial better than the murder trial attorneys because he has been a defendant in one before and was acquitted. So he knows better. And he doesn't like these attorneys. They're all stupid. They don't know as much as he does. So he tells them in the interview too, he's like, I'm not worried about going to trial because I know that I'll be acquitted. And he's like, I've told you this from day one, have I not? And he's incredibly confident about it. Like, just there's not even a chance that he is going to be convicted, according to him. So he said the only thing that concerns him about going to trial is his exact quote was turds for lawyers. Oh, he's something else. So, here it is. I snipped that. 10 jailhouse interviews with him over the course of those 8 years before this came out. So these are some snips. I went and found these are some snips from some of the interviews. So this one was in 2010. At this point, he had been in there for 18 months. And he says in this interview, basically, he's ready for court and he wants to just get it over with and go home. He wants to get it over with and go home because he doesn't see a conviction happening. He's like, there's no way, which newsflash, it happened. But he said that, get this. This is my favorite quote from this whole interview. He said, that it dawned on him that this trial is like Utah all over again. He said that Utah was the Tommy Show, but he said now it's like the Tommy Show live from Las Vegas. Now, this is a murder trial for 2 lives that were lost, but not to Tom. It's the Tommy Show live from Las Vegas. He's something. So this is the 2012 interview. This smile is that creepy smile he does when they come in and he's like, am I beautiful? Do I look beautiful? And then in this one, he gives a whole bunch more weirdo Tom things. But one of the things that stood out to me in this one is he talks about how him being there is hard on everybody. And he said, I'm the victim in this. I'm the victim. And he said that, he talks about how he loves women. He loves all women, makes jokes about what a womanizer he is and stuff. And they ask him to name all 6 wives and he does. And then he's like, do you want the names of my fiancés too? And but yeah, he says he's the victim in all of this. Okay, so the 2015 interview, he goes through some hair choices too during all of this. But the 2015 interview, he's pointing to the camera right here because the producer just asked him, do you have any secrets? And once again, him wanting to make inappropriate jokes. When the producer asks, do you have any secrets? Tom's smiling and he points to the camera. He's like, is that thing on? And then he makes this joke about how, well, normally I'd say if I tell you my secrets, then I'd have to kill you. But if I say that, then I'll be charged for that too. And then which is not a funny joke when you're, when you've got victims' families. But then he's like, well, we're not married and I don't have insurance on you. So it wouldn't be profitable, would it? Really? Such a douche. All right. Now we have long hair, crazy long hair version. This is 2016 interview. And he talks about how this is one of the things that's really interesting too, because he pretty much calls it right here. He's talking about how he wants a fair trial, and he said that all of his attorneys have told him that if the Utah stuff comes into this trial, you will be convicted, you will get the death penalty, but 3 years later, the Supreme Court will overturn it. And that is literally exactly what happened. Utah stuff came in, he was convicted, he got the death penalty, and 3 years later, the Supreme Court overturned it. The 2017 interview. Now he's got, now he's cut his hair for trial and all that. So this interview, he talks about his wives and stuff like that, and goes over all of, you know, this. I hate even listening to him. I don't think he should even be allowed to talk about them, but he talks about Kathy and about how, you know, Kathy's number one, about how she was so beautiful, and he knew that they were going to have kids, and that Justice and Krista, their 2 kids, those were, you know, his gifts to the world. And he does say the one thing he ever admits fault to. He says that his marriage to her wasn't good, but he does say that it was his fault because of drugs and other women. He talks about Becky, his second wife, and said she was perfect. Now, remember, Becky's the one who killed herself, like, you know, yeah, her and Epstein. So this is the interview where he says she was whatever I wanted her to be. I could tell her that I wanted steak and to dress as a clown, and, you know, she would do it. And he said that she did not deserve him cheating on her. This part really made me mad. He said that the last time he talked to Becky, this makes me want to punch him. The last time he talked to Becky, he said that he was just so sick of hearing her talking about wanting to kill herself. So he told her, look, if you want to kill yourself, do it, and just put everyone out of their misery. And he said that, you know, he even told her about rope that he had downstairs and that she could just go hang herself. And he pretends to cry, but there's no tears, nothing like that. So he's like, you know, all I had to do was love her and hug her and tell her it would be okay. But, you know, instead I just told her that there's rope downstairs and she can go hang herself. He's so full of crap. So third wife was Leona. And this is the interview where he talks about, you know, she was beautiful, reminds you of an island girl, and said that, you know, they were married for almost a year, but she liked to party and sometimes forgot to come home. He said that fourth wife, Gaina, they asked about the story about him cleaning the gun and it going off. And he was like, oh, that's BS. That never happened. Which Gaina would have no way of knowing that somebody else had just told detectives that that's one of the ways that he was planning on killing his wife. So I don't think that that's something that she would just make up. They asked about the fifth wife, Frances, and he was like, you know, she was wonderful and she was sick. So he wasn't surprised when she died because she was sick and she was born with a heart condition. But now remember, she had a heart condition, but she wasn't sick. She had a heart condition, but this is something she was, you know, living with. He makes it sound like, you know, oh, my poor dying wife, you know, like, and that's not what it was at all. So he tried to milk that too. And then he said, you know, sixth wife, Sharon, who he's now on, you know, going to trial for her murder, that, you know, there's nothing that the jury can say because, you know, they weren't there and he was there and he knows what happens or whatever. And that, you know, he's, of course, always innocent. The producer does ask him during this interview too, you know, don't you think that it looks suspicious with all the insurance policies and, you know, and I guess nothing looks suspicious to him, but, and then, the producer asked him if he's a narcissist. He was like, oh, absolutely. And so he asked him, he's like, okay, well, don't you think that if you're a narcissist, that could possibly keep you from being able to actually see the truth? And Tom's like, no, I know the truth. Because once again, it's Tom's world and everybody else is wrong except for Tom. Tom's never wrong. Everybody else in the world is. God, he sounds like my ex-husband. All right. So this is the news producer. I got this little clip from that. This is the news producer who has gone and done all these interviews with him. So 9 years after Sharon's murder, he's finally set to go to trial. It's June of 2017. 1 week before the trial, he does this interview, and he talks about the attorneys he went through. He lists off all 10 attorneys that he went through. And he tells him, and then these are the new attorneys, but he tells them that, he didn't do it and he should be acquitted, because he's like, who can say that I did that other than the state? Nobody, because it didn't happen. And he said, there were 6 wives and 4 being dead. Doesn't say anything about him. It just shows corruption in Vegas. Makes total sense. So he said he's ready to go through this trial because he is just ready to make them look like a fool again, because he fully believes that once again he's going to be acquitted. So the trial finally starts. So this is one of the prosecutors. You can see the judge over here. You got Tom over here. All these witnesses, all the people that they had talked to, they're all flying in from all over the country. The daughter, this testimony is heartbreaking. She, gets up there and cries. This is Sharon's daughter, and she gets up there and cries, and she takes a stand. She talks about how inappropriate she felt it was that, as soon as they got married, as soon as her mom and Tom got married, that he immediately started talking about getting, his and hers matching urns, and immediately started talking about getting life insurance policies on her. And she was crying on the stand, and she told them about, all the stuff that she went through because of him, the way he treated her and all of that, and the death of her mom. Sharon's friends got up there. Remember, we talked about Alice earlier. So, she said that Sharon was extremely upset when she found out that Tom had life insurance on her, because I guess Tom had not told her that he had life insurance on her, which might explain why she wanted to go get the will when she was with Alice. And then she told the jury about the will too. Detective. So we have Detective Scott Conley, Eric Tarantino, who was, remember, the star witness from the first one, and then Mark Bartlett, who was the neighbor. So they all got up there. And then the lead detective, Dean O'Kelly, was the one who got up there and kind of, closed it all out. And, that's pretty common to have the lead detective be the last one to put everything together. So there are some funny screen grabs that I found when I was looking through stuff. The lawyers, where they were saying, oh, hi, Presley. Love you, babe. That's my niece. So the attorneys who were saying that, he can be difficult to deal with, I found some screen grabs where it's funny because, okay, so look at this one. He leans over to try to talk to his attorney. The attorney's like, no, stop. I just sit down and shut up. I've had enough. And then I found these where he's telling his lawyer, he's like, I still just don't think you guys got all of it in. And this one, he's telling him, you didn't ask the questions. You didn't take it into evidence. So they've got, there's all these situations where it shows that he wanted to run the whole show. He gave his attorneys a really hard time. And his attorney even said, Tom wanted things in regardless of whether it was ethical or whether it was, sound legal strategy, or no matter what the attorneys thought, did not matter. Tom wanted to run the show, and he wanted to get in whatever he wanted to get in. So the defense believed that the Utah case obviously should not have come in because it didn't have anything to do with this case and with Sharon and Mike. So they told the jury that, and they tried to tell him, like, just focus on this one. The defense said that his defense attorney said that video walkthrough that we looked at earlier, where he was, completely bizarre acting, that ended up being another hurdle that they had to get over. But they did have his brother come on, and this is his brother. They had his brother come on and say, when that was happening, he was intoxicated. I ended up having to drive him there because, I didn't even want him driving himself and all of that. So, I put not happy. So, Tom did another interview. That's what this is. He did another interview with NBC where he's just fussing about the attorneys, and he's like, I'm not happy with them. They didn't do anything at all. And, on and on. He gives attorneys a hard time. So they did closings, and you can see, bless her heart, Colleen is, just as emotional as she can be. They did their closings. The jury's out. And while they're out, I caught this little screen grab too, because I thought it was kind of funny. His defense attorney's telling him, for every half hour that the jury stays out there, it's a victory for us, because at least then they're thinking of it, And then the verdict came in, and of course he was guilty. And I caught this screen grab too. So he doesn't react when they say that he's guilty. But he, after it's over, he leans over to his attorney. He's like, well, I think next time maybe we better call some witnesses, huh? Always trying to run things. So for sentencing, remember wife number 5, Frances, who died in the hospital. So her daughter, Rachel, comes in and takes the stand. This is for the sentencing part. She was asked if Tom ever got violent, and she said yes. And she's given this example of Tom like slamming a burger, or like it's like a Burger King sandwich or something, into her mom's face because it had mayonnaise on it. So she said that he like freaked out. When she's telling this story about what happened, he literally, like, her voice is shaky, and you can tell like this, she's trying to work through this. Thank you, Terry Lynn. Welcome. Terry Lynn, it's good to see you. Welcome to the family. You're part of the family anyway. You've been part of the family. We appreciate you. So as she's telling this story, you can tell that, like, this is not an easy thing for her to have to go through. And his reaction, instead of sitting there respectfully and listening, is he rolled his eyes, and he like made it like it was obvious. He rolled his eyes and he looked over at his attorney, and then he shook his head, and he was like, unbelievable. Said it like out loud, not just mouthed it, like said it like out loud, like unbelievable. Ugh. And then she told the jury about how Tom had coached her to say that when Frances and her ex-husband were going through custody battle, Tom had coached her to tell the courts that her dad was a pedophile so that he wouldn't get custody. And she said, and it wasn't true. And I told the courts, and she, was able to finally right that wrong. But she said that, she had, she did that because he had coached her to do it. So, her stuff was really powerful. His mom took the stand, and, she basically said, she said, I love you, son, and that she was there to support him. All right. So, so sentencing day 2, he comes in with a Tony Romo jersey on. He said in an interview that, football has always given him comfort, even in jail. So he decided to come in, and now this is the day where, you know, he gets his sentencing. He gets to address the jury, and he's wearing a football jersey, a Tony Romo jersey. So prosecutors were not happy about this because they said it's basically like kind of a big FU to everybody that's there. So these are his kids. So this is Krista and this is Justice. And you can see like you can't really tell, but he's kind of waving to them like this as they come in. I think he waved to his daughter like that. So they come in and, you know, they both are saying he was a great dad. That, you know, Justice said something about how this reality is so different from the reality that he grew up with and what he knows, you know, because that's not the version of his dad that he knows. So allocution. So this is where the defendant has the right to give a statement to the jury. Remember Lori Vallow and her shit show of a speech the other day. So he stands up and he tells the jury, he's doing this like the whole time. And he tells the jury, you know, I'm so sorry that this has happened. And, you know, you have no idea how much I miss Sharon and how much I miss Francis. And he said that he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life on death row and that he doesn't even want to spend the rest of his life in prison because it's going to be hard on his family more than anything. He's so selfless. So sentencing verdict. They come back and they sentence him to death penalty. He doesn't really react too much when they say it. He kind of like he's sitting at the table and he kind of like looks down. But then he's in this interview, kind of behind the scenes after it happens. And he is telling them, you know, well, you know, no big deal really, because it's just a matter of 3 more years and I'll get a fair trial. And that's, I mean, 3 years later, he's getting another trial. So the Supreme Court decision, they reversed and remanded the decision. So the Supreme Court basically said, so 7 justices, it was unanimous, said that he is remanded a new trial. They said that the prosecutors should not have brought in, you know, the similar connections between this case and the one from Utah, that they should not have allowed in the prior bad act evidence, and that the jury was, you know, inundated with evidence of bad character and could have been unfairly prejudiced against him. So they say that, let's see, there's a quote from it that I pulled. Okay, it says, ultimately, the state lured the jury into finding Randolph guilty based on myriad other bad acts that were not even marginally relevant for a non-propensity purpose, rather than constraining the testimony to evidence relevant to the charged offenses. So he's getting a new trial. There was also a jailhouse call after this where he's like thinking that he's going to get bail, and newsflash, he didn't. And he said the only one he's a threat to is married women. So I also found, that's all I've got on this, but I also found there's an interview, because I was curious, you know, what the jury had to say about that and in their decision. And I found an interview with the jury where they're all saying that they felt like there was enough evidence based on just this stuff for them to have convicted, that they didn't need all of the other stuff, and that they would have voted guilty regardless. So, you know, they actually even said that they knew as soon as they went in there that they were all voting guilty, but that the reason they took so long is because they wanted to make sure that they were doing the right thing and going over everything. And, you know, just wanted to make sure that she is so stinking cute. I love her so much. She is so funny. So, she acts like she's got a tough life. All right. So, anyway, basically they said that, they would have voted that way regardless. So I'm curious to see, you know, what happens in this one. It is definitely going to be a wild one. He's got some, interesting, he's been interesting in some of his hearings and stuff like that. I will try. I'm not feeling well today and I really want to rest. So I'm going to end early today. But maybe tomorrow we will, I'll pull up some of the clips from some of his hearings and from the other trial, and we'll watch some of that and watch some of his, you know, craziness and his crazy behavior and all of that. So we can surf through and pull some of that stuff tomorrow because it's pretty wild. So but that's all I'm going to do today. I love y'all and I want to stay and hang out with you forever, but I am not feeling well, and this is going to be a wild one, and it's going to be in Pacific time. So, oh God, Distant will be happy. So it's going to be later than what I'm used to too, and I get up so early anyway, so I need to start resting. So, oh, speaking of Distant, tomorrow is jury selection, and then openings are supposed to start on Wednesday. So, but this will be the first one that we're doing in Pacific time. So I want to get some rest so that I can be ready for it. Tomorrow we will we'll probably do a short stream tomorrow too, just so I can keep resting. We're not going to start early tomorrow either. I'm going to try to sleep in a little bit. But maybe we'll do just a short, short stream, maybe sometime around lunch or mid-afternoon, depending on how I feel. And just for like an hour or two, we'll pull some of the stuff that, from his hearings and all of that stuff and take a look so we can see. Because there's some times when, he gets his sassy pants on and it's funny. So, so I will... Oh, Lucy's on the run again. She's going to get another flip-flop. You going to get flip-flop? I'm about to take you out. So that's all I got for today. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Spread the word, because this one's going to be a really interesting one to watch. And it's such a crazy backstory. I know that there are going to be people who weren't in here today, who aren't familiar with the case, who are going to ask 1 million questions. So I am going to try to keep this link for this one to give all the background information. I'm going to try to keep it pinned on Twitter to refer people, because it's a little bit easier than having to try to go through all of this, because there's so much. So I'm about to get flip-flop number 2. You see her? You can see her little fanny, like right here. And my closet's right there. So it's like she's sitting in the closet. So she's giving me a minute. And then it's like, if I don't come, then she's going to grab another flip-flop from right there and bring it over here to the pile. She's a funny thing. All right, y'all. I appreciate it so much. Rest up. We got a big trial coming ahead. And thank you for reporting to jury duty. And I will see y'all tomorrow.